Welcome to the CFB Dynasty Podcast with hosts Matt Knowles and Brian McElfish.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? This is the CFBDynasty.com podcast. I'm your host, Matt Knowles. Over here on that side, you've got the founder and the creator of CFB Dynasty, Mr. Brian McElfish. And with us as always, you can call him number one. Don't you call him number one, but you better not call him number two. It's Doug Gravely. Brian and Doug, how you guys doing today?
Good, man.
He is number two. Doug is definitely number two.
I'm always number two. Number one in your hearts, but number two in the final standings, buddy.
All right, so we got a great show out here for you today. We're going to be talking about teams trending up in college fantasy football, what our predictions are for that this early on in the offseason. We're also going to talk about some improvements that they're being made to the CFBDynasty.com website for you guys, some exciting things that are happening out there. But the first thing we want to talk about, a couple things that are current events that are happening out there. So we got weather balloons that are out there in the sky. We got all these different unidentified objects being shot down. We got a mushroom cloud over Ohio. Doug, Brian, what do you think about all this? What's the cause? Is it aliens? What's your take on all this?
You know, I think it has to do a little bit with the NFL script, but it's, someone else doing the scripting. Did you see the movie came out on Netflix about a train crash? It just came out in December. Train crash that happened, and the same exact scenario where it's like chemical chaos everywhere, and it's like based in Ohio.
That's wild. I did not.
That's a little weird.
Just the script. Yeah, it's called White Noise. It's just according to the script, just like the NFL. It's all scripted.
You know what? I probably should watch that because one of my favorite movies of all time is Super 8, where you have the train crash, but it's all aliens. If you've never seen Super 8, that's a great movie. But you know what? Maybe it is aliens. I don't know. But yeah, there's crazy happenings.
It just makes me think of your NCAA team, your old aliens. And did you see? So this is obviously we didn't talk about this pre-show at all, but did you see? There's a new video game coming out that's going to be free. It's going to be a free game. It's college football based. It's not going to have any licensing or anything, but it looks really cool. It's built on a completely new engine. Looks like the gameplay is going to be pretty great. It's going to have online play and a lot of stuff, a lot of team builder, stadium builder.
Oh, that's great.
All that stuff.
What system is it for?
All of the systems. So
really?
So PS4 Plus, basically. And it's coming out this spring. So we're going to have to give that a go and definitely do some shows about it once we download and play it. But you can build your aliens again. That'll be fun.
Heck yeah, man. Always about the aliens. So we talked about the wild things happening in the skies. So a lot of people are talking about what they think are wild things that happened on the ground at the Super Bowl. Excuse me, that game that we can't mention, the big game that happened on Sunday at the end of the football season. Everybody's losing their minds about the end of the game and the holding call. They said that game, that just shows it was fixed, ruined the whole game. I've got my opinions on this. What do you guys think? Do you think it was holding? Two, do you think that whether that's holding or not, whether it's called or not, that it changed the outcome of the game?
So I've been looking at a lot of comments on this. Obviously the playback of that one particular play has been played on Twitter thousands and thousands of times. I've watched it, heard even Bradbury's comments about this. I mean, when the guy says it's holding, that the penalty was called on, I mean, I got to go with the fact that it was holding. But the issue that I have is officiating in general, how it is not consistent from first quarter, start of the game, to the end of the game. And it seems like not just in the Super Bowl, which people are freaking out about, but it's in general. Every game you watch, officiating is not consistent from first play of the game to last play of the game.
And in college football, it's just terrible. Like, these guys aren't full-time refs, a lot of them. It's just a terrible scenario for a organization that makes so much money. It seems like it'd be really easy to kind of fix that and get these guys paid to where it can be their main job. But so, Matt, I'll defer to you as a ref. But yeah, I echo the sentiment of sure it was holding. but if it was the only holding call of the whole game, that seems like it was a ticky-tack way to kind of end the game there. And it was a deflating way to end the game, because it was like the whole game was super great and fun until the last minute when that call happened.
Well, I would say, as a soccer official that's ref for over 23 years, soccer, unless you're playing at the highest levels where you've got VAR, when you're at the level like I ref, you don't get the opportunity to go back and review things. You just have to make the call on the fly. You can confer with the officials. You have to do the best you can. But when you're at the level of the NFL, I think the biggest thing is they need to be able to have replay capability on every play if needed. I think the play that is in question, like you said, Doug, was it holding? Technically, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Practically, should it have been called? I don't know, because for that call to be made at that point in the game, it seems very ticky-tack. That specific type of play across the NFL season was so out of control. I remember there was one play, Kader Kohu, the undrafted rookie of the year for the Dolphins. There's a play, I think it was against the Bills, where you see the flag for pass interference get thrown in. The flag, he's at about the 25-yard line. They throw the flag. They give the ball to the opposing team at like the 10-yard line. And you can see in the replay, you're like, how is it even possible that the offensive team should have got the ball at that point? So it's one of those areas that should become a point of emphasis, because you don't want to see a game get called on that. You also want the players to be trained, don't be dumb and try to get that hook at that point, because you never know what's going to happen. You've now put it into the hands of the referees by making that play. So it's on the defensive back for making that play. But I do think, as Doug said, there needs to be some consistency. I don't think it changed the game. Obviously, the Chiefs are able to run the clock out, but I think that the paint on the surface of the field made a lot more of a difference. Jalen Hurts slipped trying to throw the Hail Mary. He slipped on the paint on the field. That's why the ball was like 20 yards short. That to me was much more of a concern than a ticky-tack call at the end of the game, because there were so many other things that happened.
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely many other things that happened, but you give that Eagles offense a full minute, and all they've got to do is kick a field goal. Like, shoot. I mean, they didn't have timeouts left, but what are the odds that they kick a field goal? It's better than 30%, probably.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. I'm not saying they couldn't have come back. I'm just saying I feel like there's a lot of other things that could have happened in the game that were a lot more impactful than just that one call that happened in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, but all this stuff's got to get fixed across college football too. Like, this is a big issue, and some of the biggest names in the industry are talking about it.
So let's get down to college football. Let's get down to CFB. I know BMAC. First, we have one little quick news and notes we want to talk about, but after that, we're going to talk about some of the improvements to the CFB site that are really exciting coming into 2023. So why don't you take it away, BMAC? Let's talk about the news and notes that are on your mind right now.
Sure. For anyone tuning in on YouTube, I'll show the depth charts page for a quick second here, because Trayshawn Holden arrested and then kicked off the team from Oregon yesterday. So I think we had him pegged as wide receiver 2 on Oregon. So he's been removed, and everyone else kind of shifted over. So our wide receiver 6 spot is open for Oregon, and that's one we're going to figure out in the spring. We've done a lot more here on the depth charts page, but plenty more to do as we get actual real news coming in for a lot of these schools where it's hard to get information about, but they're critical to us, like in our rankings and stuff like that. So behind the scenes, still working on rankings and all that. But for what we're talking about today, I've got one example page here. So we've got an individual team depth chart page here showing you Alabama. So we've got a few stats up here just to kind of give you context. So if you go and you search on the website, you search for whatever, Colorado depth chart, eventually once we've got it live, you'll see their national passing. So their national rank. So Alabama here is 19th in the country, 281 yards per game and 37 touchdowns passing. Oh, this rushing one I have to fix. But national rank for Alabama rushing was 31st, 193 rushing yards per game, and I think they had 26 rushing touchdowns. That's a number again. I've got to make sure I know to fix that. And then what you'll see on the other side here, and this is like super crucial to kind of figuring out, all right, how are teams going to do this year? And what do they have coming back? So you can kind of see what they did last year, passing and rushing. Now, what do they have coming back? So Alabama ranks 122nd in the country with 41% of their offensive production coming back. And then you'll see returning defensive production, 38%. That ranks 126th in the country. Huge amount of turnover for Alabama. But you get to the next one, which would be this is the Bill Connelly SP plus power rating. They're fifth in the country as a team because of how they reload and the incredible recruiting classes that they're stacking on top of each other, and the key portal guys kind of coming in there. So even though Jahmyr Gibbs is gone, top receivers are gone, backup receivers have transferred, Bryce Young is gone, some key O linemen are gone. Like, Bama's going to reload, and we'll talk a little bit about how they're doing it differently this year. But offensively, Bama power rated at 21st in the country and 5th defensively. So those are some of the metrics that we'll have for every team so that you can kind of get a really good gauge of how they did last year, what's coming back, and how they're power rated going into this year, because it's critical. Like, one of the things we would love to see here would be O-line kind of split out, but we don't have that information. So think about going into the last draft and a mistake that we made on two of them that we won't be making this year. So UVA, we knew Brennan Armstrong was losing his top 6 O-linemen. We talked about that going into the year. We dropped him for it. We projected him to do worse, but not as bad as he did. So that'll be fixed. Think about sweet Lou Nichols in Central Michigan, led the country in rushing. And then as I'm watching the draft, day 2, day 3, another Central Michigan O-lineman gone. And he sucked this year. So to that point, UTSA is bringing back their quarterback, their top 3 receivers, but they're losing most of their O-line. So that's kind of something to watch as you go into projecting and looking at, all right, maybe Matt, maybe you should trade the quarterback. Maybe he's not going to have as good a year as it appears on the surface with his top 3 receivers coming back. What do you think about that, Matt? What would you do with your UTSA quarterback?
Well, I think the fact that he's probably been there since 1997, getting what is the 7th year eligibility, something insane like that. I'm going to hang with him just because, he's gotten better and better no matter what else has been going on around him. I mean, let's be real. Who's normally going to be talking about UTSA? He's the reason why we're even talking about UTSA. So I feel like he's going to help improve that offensive line that's there with his dual threat ability. But I absolutely agree that you have to take into consideration what is coming back there and have to have tempered expectations. If you're losing those offensive linemen and you're not getting quality replacements in, it's probably going to change up the way that offense functions.
And in reality, it's also because, if we were to graph out your trade history, all leagues, like it's fallen to 0 here over the last 7 years.
Well, see, there's a reason for that, is because I like to trade in trade windows that are near when the season happens. I'm not like guys that are in the league that are like, it's October of 2021, and they're like, can we trade 2025 draft picks now? I'm like, no, I want to be able to compartmentalize and think about my team. I don't want to be trading stuff for you guys are like trying to trade things, but you're going to be getting AARP discounts. I'm like, I want to be able to trade and think about the season and focus there. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But no, I do need to cut some more trades, but I also need to not be getting bamboozled in some trades. I'm normally good about being the bamboozler, not the bamboozlee. But I gotta make it work. 2020 really hurt me. 2020 really hurt me. The COVID year and the additional people in the roster that year. I had a lot of dead weight on my roster, so it's been a tough road to hoe to get some of that stuff cleaned off.
Yeah. So, Frank Harris, maybe if we did a trade high segment, like he would be one of the premier guys because of that lack of O-line coming back. Anyways, those are the metrics there. And then as you scroll down, you'll see, projected quarterback 1, 2, 3, running back 1, 2, 3, receivers 1 through 6, couple tight ends, and the all important kicker, Will Riker.
And I think one of the things that makes this really cool is that certain people want their information certain ways. Some people want to see the black screen with every single name and just a wall of information. But there's some people who are like, hey, I want to go get some information about Alabama. I want to get some information about UTSA. And doing it like this, you can break it out and be able to focus on that a little bit better. And I think it's going to be a really valuable tool. What do you think, Doug? Do you like this format for your use going into the next season?
Oh, I like it a lot, man. When Brian first showed it to me and told me of his plan, it was definitely exciting. It's something that is so hard to find, especially so early. And the fact that a lot of research is being done on it, on this end, just shows how important that this type of information can be.
Yeah. I mean, it's critical, especially for all the people that haven't played and might be new coming into the college fantasy world. Like, without this information, you can just draft off of our cheat sheet if you want to. But for the ones that, are searching for it, our research will, be their benefit. And actually, we had some good Discord feedback on this. And we made these color-coded, but I think I overwrote those changes accidentally. So we'll have team colors there instead of CFB colors for some of these things. Anyways, whatever. That's enough really about just the depth chart and what we're working on, but we'll get a bunch of these mugs cranked out here over the course of the next month, and they'll continue to be updated all throughout the off season into fall camp and everything. So, but crucial information there added to each individual team page as we kind of go about that.
And one of the things I really do like that this is being developed now, getting the foundation in there, because as we all know, when the season comes about, ain't nobody got time to be doing 133 teams worth of foundational updates. If something changes in the depth chart, like you said, you can just go in there, plug it in, it'll show up on the front end. It's going to be a lot easier to keep up with this information as the season goes along.
Another thing that we'll do, and Doug leads these efforts, will be we talk to beat writers and all the local writers kind of covering their local teams, and they look at the depth chart, kind of put their feedback in. So we'll have a good Q&A session with as many writers as will respond to us, and that kind of stuff is also fantastic information that will hopefully be coming, more so starting that as we're a couple weeks into most fall or spring camps and all that stuff.
That's awesome. I'm really excited about seeing where this goes for 2023. That's some of the technical back end stuff, but the main focus of the show for today, we want to talk about teams that are trending up in college fantasy football for 2023. There's a lot of different metrics and a lot of different things we could be talking about. We've got some teams that are off to the side that we've all notated, and they're there for different reasons. But really excited to be able to share these things with you. So BMAC, why don't we start with you? What is the first team that you want to talk about, and let's see where we go from there.
Yeah, sure. So the top team in terms of returning production. And for most of you probably know I'm a, born in Gainesville, Florida fan. Anyways, Florida State, 87% of their team returns, and like really key players like Jared Verse on defense, and they return 94% of their defense. They're a team that certainly they're trending in the right direction, but this year could be a really special year. If you look at their playoff odds, they're right there with Clemson, and it's not been the case for a very long time. It's been Clemson, then the Grand Canyon, then the next ACC team. So offensively, Florida State's got 80% back. They lost Trayshawn Ward, transfer to Kansas State. So really looking at Trey Benson here as a breakout running back. Like, could he be in our top 10 with like the O-line coming back, the history of Norvell and what he's done running the ball, and just his overall talent? The former transfer from Oregon could have a really, really special year. And he would be someone to target low right now before, all of the rankings and everything comes out. And then, obviously, at quarterback, Jordan Travis. There's not a receiver I'm really targeting yet. Typically, I prefer to target receivers from a more pocket passer style offense, unless there's like a clear, wide receiver target, or like a individual wide receiver that kind of eats all the target share. Otherwise, there's not really a receiver that stands out that I want to go get, a Micah Pittman or whatever. But FSU, number one for me on teams trending up, and a couple of those players to target, like Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, both could potentially be top 15, top 10-ish going into the season in terms of fantasy predictions.
All right, Doug, what about you? What's the first team you want to talk about that you see as a team that's trending up?
The first team that I've got on my list is Texas. Obviously, they showed what they can do when they put it all together. They lost to Alabama by a point last year, 20-19. I mean, it was a battle. They're getting Nair off injury, which is a receiver that you guys know I was super high on, and he got hurt right after I drafted him. The addition of Ad Mitchell, I think, is going to be huge there. And Quinn Ewers, hopefully he can have a season where he's not riddled by injury, and we can see what happens with him.
And I'm a grammatical guy. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but it is A.D. Mitchell. His real name's like Adonai or something like that. Yeah. Anyways.
So, like Brian said on FSU, Texas is returning 85% of their offensive production, so they're super high on that list as well. And I see a lot from them, and I hopefully Quinn Ewers, like I said, can stay injury-free and show us what he can truly do.
I mean, he was looking great going into that Bama game until he got hurt. Man, yeah. they were starting to look great. But, yeah, Worthy alongside A.D. Mitchell, alongside
Whittington's still there.
Yeah, Whittington, you're right. Running backs will be new. But, again, like we said earlier, that's one of the easier positions to kind of replace. Obviously, they're replacing a really, really special talent. But, yeah, Texas has the number 3 returning offense in the country.
All right, BMAC, what's another team that is got your senses all aflutter going into the 2023 season as a team that you think is going to be trending up?
All right, so this isn't something that I thought of or whatever, but just looking at the data here, seeing Missouri at 9th in terms of returning production. And then on the power rating, which is the SP Plus by Bill Connelly from ESPN, Missouri's 32nd. And that kind of just opened my eyes a little bit. Like, quarterback's been a problem for them. But they got Jake Garcia coming over from Miami. If they can figure out the quarterback position, that guy is going to be productive in that offense, which is typically really good in terms of fantasy. And Luther Burden, think about him. He committed to Missouri, or he committed to coming back. There was rumors he was flirting with Georgia and others in potentially entering the portal. That didn't happen. And could he have just a breakout year for an offense that's going to be underrated? It's really possible. So Burden, and hopefully we see whoever just kind of take that quarterback position over. But surprised to see them on there, honestly.
All right, Doug, who's the next team that you got that you want to make sure that people have their eye on going into 2023?
I've got Tulane, returning 73% of their offensive production from last year. And they've got Pratt at quarterback. I mean, in my opinion, doesn't get more exciting than that for them. Somebody they can trust, somebody that always comes up, every game he's ready to play. And he could potentially be a top 5 quarterback going into our rankings when we adjust them and work on our rankings. And, that's good for me. I've got him on my fantasy team. Again, another team, though, kind of like Texas, that what are they going to do at running back? Spears is gone, but the potential for whatever running back goes to that team is great as well. With a lot of their offensive linemen returning, their receivers are coming back, and a guy that can manage every football game I've seen in Pratt. I mean, we saw what they did against USC in the bowl game. There's not a team out there that they're afraid of. So that's an exciting team to watch.
And Tulane, if this would have been a 12-team playoff year, Tulane would have been in the playoff. So, will Tulane be able to continue that that kind of production and that kind of national relevance? It sounds like you're saying that they will. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to go with, and Brian knows throughout my history, I always am somebody that roots for the underdog. I'm always looking for people that are less than, or people that are they're also Rams that may be able to jump into the discussion in the following year. And I'm going to go with what I think is the most obvious one, which is in Colorado. You have Deion Sanders coming in there. You would say, well, why am I even going to bring up a team that is 93rd on returning production and 94th in the power ranking as well? Colorado was not a very good team last year. So you don't really want to have 99% of their returning production coming back, because that team only produced a 3-9 record. But listen to this. Colorado has, since the end of November, 25 players that have transferred in through the portal. They have the number 2 portal ranking in the country, only behind LSU as far as the productivity coming in from the portal into their team. I think when you look at Deion coming in, look at all the guys that came over from JSU, and you look at just the excitement around Colorado. Now, I'm not saying Colorado is going to be a team that's going to be fighting for the playoff. But what I am saying is, last year, you probably didn't even look first, twice, third, fourth time at anybody on Colorado to be on your fantasy team. But I think they're probably going to be the team that's going to have the best chance of having the biggest improvement year to year as far as their overall record and their production of fantasy relevant players. What do you guys think?
Well, so you're a Dion guy, obviously. Then, what do you think about his take on the weather just not being cold out there?
Next question. I think that's silly. I don't even get a comment like that, but that's silly. But no, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that that Colorado is going to have the opportunity to be the team with the best win-loss improvement this year?
I'm wait and see mode with Colorado. I want to see it on the field. We were talking about the week 1 slate a little bit before the show, and let me see. Colorado, I think, has a fun matchup. Anyways, I want to see it on the field. Yeah, they play at TCU week 1. Ooh. That's going to be awesome. What a game. And what a game that'll be probably for TCU. But
after the national championship, you never know.
they lost Duggan, obviously, and Quentin Johnston, and it's gonna that'll be a fun game to kind of watch. But I want to see how the O-line is. I want to see what the style of offense. How does Shedeur Sanders do at quarterback? How do they split up the carries? Does the freshman just take over eventually at running back? And
I think they'll give Kavoisi Smoke out there. That's a huge pickup. That is a huge pickup, because he's got the ability to be a big time back, and you put him in an offense like that, you never know. He might be somebody that's going to have some fantasy relevance. I look forward to seeing where he ends up in the preseason rankings right before the drafts.
Yeah, we've got on the depth chart right now, we've got Smoke number 1 at running back, Dylan Edwards, the freshman, number 2, Deion Smith, returner, number 3. It's going to be interesting to see. They got Jimmy Horn transferred in. They've, like you said, a ton of transfers. JT Shrout will be the backup probably to Sanders. And Man, yeah, it'll be fun. I'm again just wait and see for me. Let's see how they produce. I'm not going to invest a lot of draft capital in Colorado this year.
What about you, Doug? You feeling Colorado, or are you selling on Colorado right now?
I'm selling on Colorado. I think the hype's too big for them to live up to. Honestly, I would like to see what these kids can do against, honestly, bigger, better, stronger players in the bigger conferences. You're coming from, a small school, technically. I want to see what they can do against kids that have been here. So we'll see what happens.
All right, BMAC, what is the next school that you want to make sure people have their eyes on?
All right, let's talk a little bit about Ole Miss. We've got to watch who's going to win that quarterback job. Of course, they had Jackson Dart had a really good looking year as a freshman at USC for the games that he played, and then kind of a rough start, rough spring, and he'll be looking at to kind of keep and win that starting job. But Spencer Sanders coming in there. He's been a starter since he was a freshman at Oklahoma State, and then Walker Howard, former 5-star talent, transfers from LSU into Ole Miss. So there's going to be a pretty big quarterback battle there. But Quinshawn Judkins at running back, what a beast. So him with Ulysses Bentley as a backup. We want to see who's going to take over at wide receiver, and the transfer from La Tech, Trey Harris, could be that guy to go along with Jordan Watkins and then Dayton Wade in the slot, and then figuring out how Chris Marshall, the former 5-star transfer in from A&M, comes in there. A lot working for them. Let's see. Returning production for Ole Miss was really high. So they are 18th in the power ratings. And let's see, returning production, they are 30th with 80% on offense, which puts them at 13th offensively. So you got a lot of the O-line coming back, elite, potential also, which I didn't even talk about yet at tight end. So you've got Trigg, obviously, and then you've got like another top 5 fantasy tight end that transferred in there. Let's see. Oh, how am I forgetting his name? Caden Prieskorn. And then, of course, Caden Davis coming in at kicker, transferring over, I think, from A&M. So a lot of talent. Should be a special offense. And Lane Kiffin's offenses are always great to kind of target for fantasy.
All right, Doug, who do you have next? You want to make sure people have on their list going into 2023?
Man, next is a team that I'm just excited to see what happens. I like the coach. I'm going to go with Nebraska. Them bringing in Matt Rule to Nebraska, and when Baylor hired him in 2017, Baylor was a 1-11 team. When he left in 2019, they were 11-3. He completely changed that team around at Baylor, and judging by all the transfers that Nebraska has got, there's excitement there again, and you could very well see the potential there. You asked the question earlier of Colorado being the potential biggest jump from, wins last year to this year. I think it could be Nebraska, who was 4-8 last year, and they could potentially challenge, that and potentially go from 4 wins to 7 to 8. I don't know. It's exciting to watch. They got the addition of Sims at quarterback.
Yep.
Kemp from Virginia, the receiver, and Brian's boy, Gilbert at tight end. Not sure what's going to happen with him yet, but again, another player that people have been super excited about. Maybe Matt Rule helps Gilbert get out of his way, and he could potentially be a guy that Brian has on his roster that we never want to play against. You never know. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen with these former NFL coaches that come in here and can turn guys around.
What's more likely then for Nebraska, for Eric Gilbert specifically? Would he, put up 10 touchdowns this year or be lost in a cornfield?
More likely,
Yep.
I could see him having a breakout year this year.
All right.
I have no confidence in Eric Gilbert after what he's done to college fantasy football offenses in the past few years. So I'll go with the lost in a cornfield.
I hope you're right, though, Doug. Like Nebraska, they're just based on the passion from their fans. They deserve it. Like you see them packing out a spring game in the cold in Nebraska, and you're going to see it again soon. Like love their fan base and just the passion that comes with it. So I hope they can return to prominence.
All right,
It
guys,
seems different when it seems a little different when they're not the team that they used to be. You know what I mean? Just college football seems different when Nebraska is not there to me.
All right, guys, we have 3 teams left that we want to make sure that we bring up. BMAC, let's go to one more team that you have on your roster for them to be looking at. Who do you got?
Wisconsin. So I like all the changes that are happening there, with the new coaching regime there. You've got a quarterback already transferred out because it's basically it's seemingly word has gotten out that Tanner Mordecai is going to be the guy. And you love that early on where, Nick Evers, they got the transfer from Oklahoma. He's the quarterback of the future. Tanner Mordecai is going to be the quarterback of the now. And everything's kind of shifting. So they got CJ Williams, transfer at receiver from USC to go along with Skylar Bell, Shamir Dike. And of course, at running back, they still got Matt's boy Ches backing up Braylon Allen and Julius Davis there at running back 3. So they've got experience and talent at quarterback and skill positions, which they just haven't had. They're just power running offense for so many years. So you kind of take what with that O-line and then pair it with some good quarterback play, and Wisconsin could surprise. And I think it's going to be a quick turnaround, and I think they will get some wins that they don't typically get. But of course, the cream of the crop there is Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. Like it's going to be, can they put up points to be fantasy relevant, and do they pass enough to be fantasy relevant? And that remains to be seen, but they've definitely got the pieces to kind of be able to do it.
Well, and Doug, you had mentioned it's just not the same if Nebraska's not up there actually being relevant. College fantasy football is not the same if Wisconsin isn't putting up some massive offensive production. That's definitely outside of game 1. That's really not what we got last year out of Wisconsin. So definitely going to be interesting to see, like you said, Brian, if Wisconsin can get that quick turnaround. So the last team I want to bring up, and then we have one more team after that I know both BMAC and Doug have on their list, but the last team I want to bring up is Florida Atlantic University, and here's why. I don't bring FAU up because I'm looking for any kind of major production out of the offensive side. What I do see, though, when you've got Tom Herman coming in, he's bringing in a lot of bigger name coaches. You've got probably one of the most decorated staffs since Howard Schnellenberger to be at Florida Atlantic.
Lane Kiffin, though, too.
But I'm talking about, I'm talking about the full staff, top to bottom, though. He's brought in a lot of assistant coaches that have got a lot of history in college football. But the thing that is interesting, if you look at FAU and you look at the metrics, FAU has got the number 3 ranking in returning players coming back, the number 1 defense. I was very surprised to see FAU at number 3 in the rankings with the number 1 returning production on defense coming back. Now, granted, it was only a 5-7 school last year, but to have that kind of consistency on the defensive side of the ball, I think that they could be a defense you might want to think about as a sleeper defense. Obviously, you do not want to pick them to play them against their Power 5 games in the earlier part of the season, but that could be a defense if they are able to utilize all that talent that's coming back. They might be able to do something for you at the end of the season.
Relative to their competition, they're power rated 81st. That's really good, based on who they're going to be playing against most of the year. So to your point there, yeah, there's a couple unstartable games, but for the rest of them, FAU is going to have some fantasy production that we're going to have to kind of figure out where it's going to come from. But yeah, absolutely, team on the rise for players to kind of target and rank there.
All right, last but not least, we got one more team to talk about. It was just mentioned briefly. Doug, I'm going to let you start. Who is the last team we want to make sure people have their eyes on as a team that is currently trending up for 2023?
I've got Penn State. And
me too.
Here's the slogan I'm going to go with, and we'll see if at the end of the season it's good. Drew Aller and Nick Singleton. I mean, should I say anything more?
Kaytron Allen.
No. I think you could have just easily gone Drew Aller. He's a baller. Come on, man.
Oh, he's a baller. So yeah, you've got Nick Singleton, who is 1,000-yard back. Allen, who I think was 100 yards away from being 1,000-yard back. You've got the transfer Dante Cephas, and a tight end who I like in Theo Johnson. But the biggest thing for me is Drew Aller, who, in my mind, and you guys can quote me on it, has a huge upside, could potentially be a pro-relevant quarterback in the future for years. I think that offense is going to be fierce, and I think they're going to be scary to play against.
Totally. So, and Cephas could be a huge breakout. Not that he was bad before, because he was good and productive, but on the big stage of the Big Ten, like that could be great. So how do you weigh this out? And we'll get into this more as we get into the rankings podcast, but like you've got Singleton and Kaytron Allen at Ohio State. You've got a running back battle there that's really similar to super talented guy. Well, more than two, but Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, you got Evan Pryor, you got, the list goes on at Ohio State, but Penn State, you basically have those main two that are going to be featured. That really does negatively affect their rankings a little bit, because the load is going to be shared. Similar to what most NFL teams do.
So I agree, and I don't think disagree is the right word either, but you can also sway to the direction of both of them needing to be drafted on your fantasy team, in the sense of, if I have a guy that posts almost 900 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns, he's probably going to be better than my number 3 guy.
Yeah, but he's like, they're both like top 5-ish talents, like if they were the lone feature running back. So it's really hard to not look at to look at the Nick Singleton highlights we posted on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and stuff a week ago, and just get blown away. And then you look at the O-line that Penn State's bringing in, it could be special. If he was the feature running back 1, Singleton would be a top 5 fantasy projected guy. Yep. But because of Kaytron Allen and his talent and the way they kind of will move the ball around a little, or kind of mix it up a little bit in terms of workload. And then you add Drew Aller, who 6'5", one of the strongest arms in all of college football. He can also run and will run, and he'll get some red zone touchdowns too. So a lot of that's going to work in there, but Penn State as a team trending up. They've got the hurdles that they have to make: Ohio State, Michigan, and take care of the rest of their business, which I think they'll do. I think Penn State's in for a potentially special season. So if you're looking at, a new playoff team, Penn State could be knocking on the door.
Yep, agreed.
All right, so that's our list for today.
I got one more. No.
Oh, B-Beck has got a bonus.
I got a question.
What's the question?
So Tennessee, right? They come in terms of power ratings. So obviously last year, passing offense took off. They're looking incredible. Recruiting is going good. They got a 5-star quarterback coming in to potentially back up or compete with Joe Milton, who's been kind of a career struggle in terms of accuracy, whether it's short, downfield. It's hit or miss. Had a great bowl game. We'll see how he does in spring and fall competing against the freshmen. But Tennessee comes in power rated number 6 in the country with a number 2 offense. So you got Jalen Hyatt, he's gone. Cedric Tillman, he gone.
He go.
Hooker is gone. Who are going to be those guys? If they are truly the number 2 power rated offense, there's going to be some major fantasy relevant players coming out of that offense. I don't know how you guys feel though about Joe Milton. I've seen him for years now and it kind of struggle. Jabari Small, obviously coming back at running back, he can be really good.
Wright's
Ramel,
good at backup.
Yep, you got Brew McCoy, Ramel Keon, Dante Thornton transferring over, and Doug's boy Squirrel White in the slot. So, what do you guys think about Tennessee and who you'd be potentially targeting there? How high you kind of value them?
You know what? I think that Tennessee, again, going against the metrics, I think that Tennessee might be a team that we might end up talking about next week on our podcast. I'm not saying that I think that Tennessee is going to be dropping out of the top area, but I think just like we talked about FAU and Colorado maybe raising their game this year. I mean, unless you're in Alabama or in Ohio State, I think that it's going to be very difficult for any team to replace the top 3 guys on your team at the level of the top 3 guys like Tennessee is going to lose this year. So again, Tennessee could surprise me, but I think that it's going to be very difficult to replace that level of quality in a single season. That's my thought. What about you, Doug?
I have to agree with you, Matt. I don't see many top 10 or top tier SEC teams that Tennessee is going to compete with this year. I just don't see it. I think their defense is still going to be a great defense. I think they're going to be fine on defense, but the offense, man, I don't even think they know who they're going to be. So I don't know.
I 100% disagree. I think they know who they're going to be, and I think that coaching staff is just so good. I think they're going to put up points, and they'll have some fantasy relevant guys. We've just got to follow the news and see who kind of takes the reins and takes that pick. Would I take in a redraft league Joe Milton? Kind of where will we rank him? That's going to be a fun topic of conversation, and how we're splitting out the rankings this year. We will get all 3 of our rankings, and then we'll have a composite ranking that goes into our draft kit as we prep everyone for draft season that's coming up.
Well, Doug, that is why you and I are just the plebeians, and that is why Brian is the founder and creator of CFB Dynasty. He's allowed to completely 100% disagree with us.
Hey, listen, he's disagreed with me before, and we've seen what happened to him. So
like I said, we talked about FSU, Missouri, Ole Miss, Wisconsin, Penn State, Texas, Tulane, Nebraska, Colorado, FAU, and the bonus team, Tennessee. Where do we get this information from? We're using the back end that is available on cfbdynasty.com to come up with the power rankings, to come up with the returning production. These are tools you're going to have access to going into next season. You're going to have access to some of them in the off season as they're rolled out. This is why cfbdynasty.com is one of the leaders when it comes to college fantasy football information, and why you want to be not just using the information, you want to be a part of the community as well. Go up to Discord. You want to be interacting with people that are out there. And especially if you're somebody that's got a really big focus on a specific team, there's going to be 133 different teams in FBS this year. I can promise you that if you are focused on a single team, you probably are going to have a better insight than anybody on the cfbdynasty.com staff, because you can only split a focus so many ways, and 133 ways is not it.
All right, so in terms of the best projected, power rated offenses going into this year. So let's count down from tied at 25. We've got Florida State. We've already talked a lot about them, and Notre Dame, with Sam Hartman coming in there. That's going to be a really fun one to kind of track. At 24, Oklahoma State. A lot of moving parts there. That one's super intriguing to me to kind of see if that works out that way. And then at 23rd, we've got Mississippi State. Obviously, with the crazy Mike Leach scenario. That one's going to be interesting to follow too. 22nd, we've got Florida, very similar to Alabama, looking at how they're beefing up along the O-line. I think most of that fantasy relevance there for Florida will be coming from Trevor Etienne and just the top running backs there. And then we've got Penn State at number 21. We've talked about them. South Carolina coming in at number 20. And, man, I can't wait to see how they use the freshman 5-star Harbor. 19th, we've got SMU. No real surprise there. They're a staple in terms of offenses that are powerful, of players that we're going to be targeting coming draft season here. Ole Miss comes in at 18th. And then tied there at 17, we've got Texas Tech and Houston. 15th, Arkansas. That's going to be obviously the Rocket Sanders show. Yet again, this year he'll be a top 10 back for us this year going into draft season. Number 14 is Texas. Drake May in North Carolina at number 13. Utah 12th. UCLA 11th. Before we go into the top 10, any surprises or comments there or no?
South Carolina is surprising to me. I don't know where their productions are going to come from. They lost a great running back. I'm still kind of straddling the fence about their quarterback play. So I don't know.
The one thing they have done the last 2 years surprised us both years. And it's the staff, it's the system, the players. Obviously, they've got things going in the right direction. So number 10, LSU. It's going to be Jaden Daniels. Oh, Gordy Miller and Jaden Daniels hanging out together, putting up some fantasy points. But I'm looking at Armani Goodwin as a great potential running back to come out of LSU. And, of course, they've got some great receivers and a legit tight end, Mason Taylor there. So number 9, Oklahoma, who really underperformed last year. So we're going to see how that goes with Dylan Gabriel coming back and the freshman 5-star coming in to back him up at quarterback. Number 8, Michigan. Number 7, Michael Penix and Washington. Number 6, we've got Georgia, who's going to have a brand new quarterback, non-transfer. We're going to see how that transition goes. Obviously, they lost A.D. Mitchell to Texas. And
you mean Ad Mitchell?
Mm-hmm. Ad.
Doug's like, dude, don't maybe come over there.
Number 5, offense, power rated going into the year, Alabama. Oregon comes in at number 4. Oh, Bo Nix. And then number 3, Caleb Williams and his profanity-laden painted nails, whatever. And USC at number 3. Tennessee, like we said, at number 2. And number 1, the Ohio State.
Also with a new quarterback. Yeah, you've got, of the top, you've got Ohio State, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, 4 of the top 6 with new quarterbacks. So it's going to be interesting, but these are the kinds of things that we're going to be looking at as we go into our rankings, because this is legit data based on years of experience that kind of supersedes just what we think or feel about a team. So when we go into the rankings, that's why you'll see Kyle McCord, who hasn't started yet, really high in our rankings.
I love it. Again, this is why you want to make sure you're up and a part of the CFBDynasty.com community. Get up to Discord, log in. We want to hear your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree with the teams that we have called out here? Do you agree or disagree with the power rankings? So we want to know what your thoughts are. We want you to be involved, because what makes this awesome is not just the flow of information outwards, is the interaction with you guys and getting your thoughts on the information that's being provided as well. So,
yeah, true. We need to do a better job of that, asking everybody. We ask on the show. We need to ask on Discord, Instagram, all the things.
Yep.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. So the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about the teams trending down. Today, we talked about teams trending up. Next week, we're going to talk about teams trending down. We're also going to look at some of the best all-time college fantasy football seasons, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. BMAC is getting out of control with this. I know that he is going back, and we're not even talking about real college fantasy football seasons. I know that he's going back and saying, if we played college fantasy football back in the day, back before we even had the internet, back before even college fantasy football was a thing, how would some of those seasons stack up? Now, granted, you can only go back so far because some of those stats are only going to go back so far. But I know that some of the things, BMAC, you've been talking about seem pretty wild. Aren't you going back to like 1980 on some of these?
1980, yeah. You'll see Steve Young in the list. You'll see so many great players. And eventually, we'll go back further. Maybe I'll get crazy and do it, before our shows. We shall see.
Well, I love it. All right, guys. So this is the end of the show for today. We really are happy you guys have hung around with us so you could hear our thoughts. So last question, BMAC, Doug, are we going to be finding you sitting on your couch this weekend watching the re-debut of the XFL?
I will probably be sitting on my couch hoping that Tiger Woods is playing in the weekend. And I may turn on some XFL to see what's going on because who knows, maybe hopefully it can become a farm system for the NFL and these guys can keep going in their careers, but probably watching golf, if I'm honest.
Hey, I'm sure I'll turn it on. And I agree with you about the farm system. I think that one of the things that football really needs is a better system to be able to continue to develop some of the younger players. Now, granted, you may only see a couple of guys actually make the transition, but with 133 teams playing major college football in the U.S., and that's just FBS, that's not going down any farther from there. And then you've only got 32 teams playing professionally at the top level. There's a lot of players that could slip through the cracks. So I'm glad to see we've got the XFL and the USFL and all these other leagues that are out there, even more minor than that. So hopefully the XFL can hang around this time and they can help us to develop, maybe try out some different rules that maybe the NFL can pick up and maybe work on this thing we talked about at the beginning, get this defensive holding and pass interference squared away or replays, kind of go from there.
Yeah, I love that. And some of the stupid technology that we have, or the great technology, that we have, but we're still like using literal chains and stuff like that. And we're not microchipping the football and all that stuff. Like that is where the XFL can hopefully test things out and take us to a new level, try out some new uses of technology.
All right, guys, so that is it for today. My name is Matt Knowles. Over there is Brian McElfresh and Doug Gravely. We thank you. We can't wait to see you guys again next week on the CFBDynasty.com podcast. See you.
Adios.